Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Expedite Common Tasks with More Than Just a GIS Application. My name is Linda Netzer and I'm delighted to be your moderator today. This webinar is brought to you by Live Lab Learning, which is a subsidiary of Academic Corporation, a wholly owned applied software company created to provide world-class training. Throughout our presentation, we encourage you to interact with us by typing in questions and comments in the questions pane. We will be answering your questions at the end of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to you online on our YouTube channel. Please take a look here at our upcoming events here at Applied Software. And at the bottom of the page, you'll note my contact information. If you have any questions or would like to speak further with Ken Driscoll or any of our experts from Applied Software, please give me a buzz. And now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ken Driscoll from Applied Software. And Ken, I'm going to change presenter.
Wonderful, thank you.
There you go, Ken.
Okay, great. Great. So hopefully my screen is being shared. And again, one of the things we want to talk about today is, yes, there are a lot of tools that allow you to expedite just general tasks working with GIS and working with Map 3D. So one of the things that has happened over the last couple of days and maybe a week or so out is there have been many requests in terms of what Map 3D can do outside of some of the general tasks in reference to what some of the common things are in Map 3D. So what I've decided to do today is kind of take you through and show you a lot of what Map 3D brings to the table. And then if you want to dive deep down into a lot of some of those things, we could set up an appointment through Linda or Ed or Todd in reference to doing some of those things. A lot of what a lot of people have ran into is that Map 3D covers a lot of tasks in terms of working with Map 3D. And for those of you who have Civil 3D, Civil 3D is built on top of Map 3D and AutoCAD. So just to kind of get started, if we move on here, of course we've talked about Live Lab Learning. There's AutoCAD, AutoCAD LT within that building design and construction suite. There's also, in terms of classes, AutoCAD Fundamentals, AutoCAD Advanced, and then there's also an AutoCAD Update class. And then down at the bottom, you clearly can see that there's a 3ds Max class for fundamentals and design lighting. As we move on, Linda made reference to the events coming up in reference to software networking, customizing your building information, InfoWorks 360 bridge drainage and roadway design, and then also Panzura, recognizing some of the benefits of a centralized storage to increase your efficiency and also productivity. And then also, down there that we're within Map 3D, there are some questions that will be held to the end that I will address. And then we're going to move on. So let me just hold on real quick because one of the other PowerPoints got stopped there. So let me minimize that. And let me pull this back up here to make sure we're on the right PowerPoint. Hold on for a second here. So the first thing that I want to do is kind of give you an overview, and then we'll get back to the other PowerPoint in a second. So the first thing I want to do is kind of give you an overview of what you'll see when you open up Map 3D. And then on the right-hand side, you can kind of see, basically, you have a task pane. And let me just move this over a little bit. Because typically what it's going to do, it's going to default on the right-hand side, but clearly you can move that over to the left-hand side. And just like AutoCAD or Civil 3D, Map 3D also has ribbons. And then based upon each ribbon, there's a certain panel that you have with Map 3D that has multiple tools. So clearly if you're trying to insert an object on the Insert panel, you can clearly see here that you have tools for inserting, attaching, and also inserting images. So under Images, just to give you an idea, in terms of the images that you can bring in with Map 3D, clearly you can see Photoshop, ArcInfo, ASCII grid format files, CAL files, ECW files, GIS files, Mr. Sid files, images, also JPEGs, even JPEG 2000, native format NES files, NTF files, True Vision files, USGS digital elevation models, and also bitmaps, and also ZSoft or Paintbrush. So a variety of different file format in terms of images that you can bring in that weren't typical of the previous versions of Map 3D. There's been some added. We'll go ahead and cancel that. And then on the map import, specifically, you want to be able to bring in ArcEsri. Now these are some of the import for map that you were allowed to bring in some of the previous versions of map. But clearly they have brought in just master maps, and then SQLite for spatial that you can also bring in now with Map 3D 2015. So on the Insert tab, clearly the ability to insert data, even point cloud data. And then you also have AutoCAD, Autodesk Recap that you can also bring in. And then on the Analyze tab, clearly some of the same features that some of the previous versions of Map allowed you to bring in. So I'm just going to jump back to my Home tab. And then one of the things on the View tab that you want to be able to utilize is the Map Task Pane, where that cuts that task pane on and off. Okay. So once you bring up that task pane, then Map has 4 different tabs. So you have a Display Manager, which allows you to display data in reference to the data that you're bringing into the drawing. And then the Map Explorer tab, which allows you to run queries, topologies, and link templates to link data. And then you have clearly map books. And map books have been around since 2012 in reference to Map 3D. And then you also have the Survey tab, where you can create a survey data store to import land XML files or point files from an ASCII file, or even connecting to a data store in reference to Map 3D. So in one of my folders here, one of the things that we can quickly look at in reference to Map 3D, and I'm just going to jump back to my home page here. On one of my folders here, straight out of the box with Map 3D, you have on C program files, Autodesk, AutoCAD 2015. Now this is only the 2015 version. You have to go to AutoCAD 2015 to get to Map. And then under Samples, you have specific SDF and shape files that you want to utilize. And this is, again, straight out of the box, so if I pick on that. So one of the things that I've quickly always done in terms of working with Map is the ability to drag and drop data from Windows Explorer straight to your drawing window within Map 3D. So all I'm going to do just to pull in several properties, and clearly you can see I have shape files. So specifically, I got zoning, PUD files, traffic counts, GF signs, properties, and then some center lines. So as an example, if I just pick on and drag and drop, it's going to bring in all the center lines of that city area, that small city area. And then on my display tab, you can see where it's brought in my center lines. So clearly you can see it's on a layer called engineering center line. And then center line geometry is my data source. And then my connection, and then the number of layers. And then there's no coordinate system set up, even though we could create a coordinate system, or if the data that you were pulling in from the shapefile had a coordinate system tied to it, then you could actually transfer on the fly that coordinate system to this drawing file. So as an example, if I picked on one of the center lines, one of the things that you would be able to see if you went to properties is that you have not only feature properties, but you also have geometry. So specific pavement, reserve, right-of-way, you have data, attributed data that's contained on that actual line. So these are my feature data properties that I can utilize in reference to map. So even though they're coming straight from an Esri shapefile, that data is contained and transferred with the data object. So one of the big things that a lot of users have not taken advantage of is the ideal, and I'm going to drag and drop in other data, is this ideal of connecting to a feature data object. So if I select connect to feature data object, it's going to bring up this toolbar. So this toolbar and properties box allows me to connect to external databases. So within my external database, I can connect to an ArcSDE database. So let me just open that up a little bit more for you. So I can connect to an ArcSDE database where I have the ability to read and write access to an Esri ArcSDE data store, or even using Oracle or SQL Server. Industry models that you get with 2014 and 2015. So read and write access to a map main or map user industry model. If you're on subscription, you have access to those models. And then SQL, ODBC, Oracle connection, even SCF, and then also shapefiles. So clearly shapefiles are read and write access from spatial attribute data from Esri shapefiles. And then SDF clearly are Autodesk is proprietary spatial data format files that you can use with personal geodatabases that support also multiple feature attributes, spatial indexing, and also file locking. And then here's the shapefile that I just pulled in, which is the ENG file that I brought in. Clearly, if I wanted to give it a coordinate system, I can double pick on that. And then if I pick unknown, if I double pick on coordinate system and said edit, I can go in and select my coordinate system library. So specifically, if I was someplace like Georgia, if I typed in Georgia, it's going to reference every matching item in reference to Georgia. So clearly I can do Georgia State Plains. You can see there's a Georgia over in Russia. There's a Hearn, Georgia State Plains. And then there's a NAD 83 State Plains east and west. So let me just open that up a little bit. So we can say State Plains each zone U.S. foot. So if we pick on that, that selects that, and I'll go ahead and select OK. So that just gives this drawing a coordinate system in reference to my drawing. And again, if I close this up, I can go back to my folder that I have open, and not only center lines, but we can drag in properties. So now I have parcel properties that I've dragged in, and clearly you can see the center lines are above. So if I picked on that, I can select draw order and move that below center lines. And it's going to give me a prompt saying the draw order view now control layer position in the canvas. What do you want to do? I want to continue an action, allow draw order layer position from now on. So I'll pick on that, and that just allows me my draw order. And if I wanted to, I can right click, and I'm going to show you a lot of the tools in reference to that. I can remove this layer. Simple. So I remove that layer, picked on these properties, remove that layer, and I'm right back where I started. So in terms of simplicity, I can go back to my center lines, just drag and drop. Here's my center lines. And then I'll go back to my properties and then drag and drop. So clearly you can see I do have flexibility in terms of, I don't often have to go in and connect to a database. It's just a few more steps in reference to me working with Map 3D. But some of the functionality that allows me to work with, because we talked about earlier, the object, the effect of feature object data. So under my properties, I can stylize these properties. So I'll pick stylize. Excuse me. And then it comes up with my stylize tab here. I'm just going to open that just a little bit more. And here we can select to stylize based upon a theme. So I can say select new theme if I wanted to. And I can say based upon the features, which are my parcels, I can theme those parcels in reference to data. So under my distribution, you can see where it's individual values. I can specify creating legend labels for my text, and based upon that text, I can bring in those parcels. So quickly, I'm just going to go outside of parcels. I can say zoning. So I'm going to do this a couple times in reference to, because we have multiple property attributes here. So I can say based upon high schools, I can theme those high schools. So it tells me Central and Red River in reference to my label. And then if I wanted to, per, and we'll allow this to catch up, based upon units, we can go ahead and say select add a label. And based upon that label, I can put in a symbol if I wanted to. So I'm going to select text. And based upon that text, I'm going to say, you know, what that text is, what high schools those may be. And I'll select apply. Then I'll select close. And then under Red River, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add a label. I'm going to do mtext for my symbol. And then under my static feature for my content, I am going to select, we'll scroll up, we'll select area. And then I'll close that. So clearly, you can clearly see if I zoom in, it's put the area and label based upon what high school in reference to central and text. And I can also do scroll down here just a little bit. And we can see, based upon that Rare River and different high school zoning area. So a lot of the flexibility that you also have, so for instance, under properties, we can select show data table. And this is the same data that you can pull in, that you can get from a county utility or county, let me expand that. So you can see area, perimeter, PIN number, parcel number, accessory, P code based zoning, whether it's PDU or business street or area zone, what high school region it's located in. We looked at that. What middle school, PUD name. So we have a lot of features that comes over with the actual shape files, and clearly we can go in and define what those are, and we can also add attributes. I'm just going to close that up. And if I right click again, clearly we can show edit styles, edit our connection. We can show a data table. We can also query a specific area. So if I select query filter to data, it brings up this functionality. And this is the same functionality that was in the previous versions of Map 3D. It just comes up in a different dialog box in reference to running a query. So if I wanted to do something really quick, like specify in a circle, and I just wanted to bring in a specific area, because we know we have multiple maps that we want to be able to add in. So we'll pick that area. So once this catches up, and I'll take my old snap off. So I'll pick that point right there. And then it says specify my radius. And then if I select OK, just to get a quick area, now it's going to bring in only that specific area that I allocated in reference to the data that I want brought in. And clearly I could do this as soon as I brought in the data, and I can define a query before I brought in the actual data. So just showing you some of the flexibility in terms of what you would be able to do. Also, on the connected data, we also have the ability to bring in raster images. So let me just look here in my folder. So no raster images. And again, everything that I'm showing you is straight out of the box. And even if I wanted to bring in a DWF, a PDF, I can bring all that in also if I wanted to. And clearly you can see this is a DWF. If I wanted to bring in just the image or picture, I can bring that in. So let me jump right back out of there. So again, FDO, which is Feature Data Objects, allows me to connect to a FDO provider, whether it's ArcSDE or Shape or SCF, or web format services or web mapping services. Map 3D allows me to connect to that. And I'm just going to close that in a second. So that's on my Display Manager tab. We also have a Map Explorer tab, and I want to be cognizant of the fact that time is ticking here. You also have the ability to connect to drawings. So I can connect, change coordinate system, track coordinates. Also have the ability to attach drawings. So this is some of the functionality that's clearly in some of the previous versions of Map 3D. And then you also have the ability to query like the previous versions of Map 3D, a location query. So if I did a location query, just like I did previous, it's a location query. Also, you can do a property query, a property based upon the property of the objects that have been brought in, so whether it's blocks, layers, line types, or even object class that have been brought in. And then also the ability to bring in based upon data, so object properties, object class, or object data in reference to data links and tables that a Esri query class may be brought in, or from Civil 3D object data also. So a lot of functionality in reference to bringing that data in. So I'm just going to jump back for a second. Let me just bring up something real quick here. So there's clearly, in terms of time, again, I want to be cognizant of time. So what I am going to do is kind of show you a lot of the features that have come into Map 3D 2015. And let me just hold on for a second here. Let me stop that. Just quickly here, I just want to change my resolution here. Make sure everyone can see everything. Okay. That here. Okay, so topographical data, access and editing, GIS, analysis and planning. We know when we first open Map 3D, GIS and planning is the workspace that we want to work within. There's also a 2D drafting workspace. There's also the idea of publishing and interoperability with data exchange. When we go a little bit into Map Server, and then there's the industry modeling and data management. So let me come back for a second here, and I'm just going to close that up. And start this back over again. There's a couple quick things that I want to show you guys. Specific to model base with Map 3D. They put out 5 different reasons, top reasons in reference to working with Map 3D. So manage CAD data in a single environment. We know we can use geolocation, clearly direct access to Map 3D and information. Also being able to create complex base maps, so GIS data, CAD data, survey, Leica, point files, land XML, and then also being able to form analysis. And when they're talking about analysis, they're talking about spatial data in reference to analysis. Remember, I stylized some of the parcels. I put attributed text with labeling and annotation on those. And then they also talk about the intelligent models that you can bring in reference to electric, wastewater, and also storm and sanitary. Okay, so let me just jump back here. So that really quickly. And then let's come back here. So topographical data, industry models, publishing, and GIS. So in reference to topographical data, it says Map 3D 2014, but this is the same thing with 2014 and 2015. So direct access for spatial data sources, being able to work with that model creation with data acquisition, also being able to access EarthMine. EarthMine and Pictometry is also with subscription. And then being able to edit that data, whether it's GIS, Microsoft Excel, within Map 3D, and then within Survey, I showed you the Survey tab that you can create a data store to import, compute, manage field measurements with GPS data. And then also being able to build a surface model within Map 3D with point cloud tools and also ASCII files for creating contours. So topographical data in terms of access and editing, street level 3D imagery, that's working with EarthMine, which is a add-on. And then overlaying drawings with high resolution, there's a plugin from the Autodesk Infrastructure Design Suite. And one of the reasons I'm showing you this, because it's a lot to show you an actual Map 3D. So again, one of the things I want you guys on the other end there to be able to do, if there's something you have of interest and you want to see more of in great detail, then just let us know and we'll set up a demonstration for that. Because clearly, again, Map 3D has a lot of tools. So improving existing conditions data and better informed planning and design projects. So this is available 2013, 2014, and 2015. So in reference to GIS, coordinate systems, coordinate systems, coordinate systems. So from grid files to transforming coordinate systems, clearly I grabbed the shape file, dragged it into Map 3D, and it basically prompted me, telling me it didn't have a coordinate system. I can give it one. If it had one, it would grab the coordinate system automatically and transform it into the drawing. So AutoCAD 2014, clearly you guys should have run into this by now. If you have a coordinate system, you now have geolocation awareness in reference to that coordinate system. And now that Autodesk has partnered with Bing Maps, you'll have geolocation pretty much anywhere in the United States. They're working on moving throughout the world. So also being able to access this data with street maps through Autodesk 360. So gen codes, reverse gen codes, and then project locations. Easy to incorporate aerial and street data access from Autodesk 360. So when you use that, it's going to prompt you to, whether you have an Autodesk 360 account, it's going to prompt you to log in, and all you will need to do is log in, and you will be able to access that data. And basically, it's free to create an Autodesk 360 account. And then provide users with the appropriate data. Easy to configure. FDO, we talked about FDO, and also industry models. We talked about being able to look at the tooltip and feature properties from the data that's been brought in, and then being able to hyperlink and use calculations. We have that functionality too in Map 3D. And that's really just working with vectors with Map 3D. Optimization for, of course, your benefit. And then common symbology, editing symbols, importing public domain symbols. Those are just blocks that you can bring in reference to Map 3D. And clearly you can see AutoCAD block editor, just save and modify, and you have that in that actual drawing template now. So save time and improve appearance, of course. So publishing and interoperability. This is a lot in reference to Map and then Map server. So extracting data in the design process, editing offline, syncing data, publishing, yes, reviewing maps, exhibits, dynamic legends, north arrows, scale bar. Of course, those are dynamic in Map 3D. Creating public and national grids, longitude and latitude also. And then also being able to distribute geospatial. Now, when you start talking about geospatial data and maps for web viewing, anytime you talk about web, you're making reference to infrastructure map server. And then AutoCAD WS is also web-based. Some of the key publishing capabilities with Map Server, I'm going to go through these really quick. Google Street Map, GeoRes, mobile viewers, Google Android, iPhones, iPads, and then other mobile devices. GIS maps with OGC, web map services, and web map feature services publishing interface. And then quickly JavaScript. It's open really in reference to prefigured templates. So for instance, open source developers access to maps technology, new in 2014 Google Street, and then GIS maps with web mapping services and web feature services in terms of publishing. Clearly you can see here the same map that I brought in with those streets are the same maps that I have here in terms of this image. Okay, so quickly, interoperability and data exchange. This is web mapping services. You can publish to a PDF. You can see the interface just looks a little bit different than Map 3D, but publishing a quick PDF, plotting, space, tool, orientation, scaling, and then margins for Infrastructure Studio also. And then more options for sharing GIS information with more users in many ways. So that's, again, Map Server. And then native drawings into Map Server. Anytime, again, I'm talking about web, you can clearly see there's a lot of publishing data with Map Server. Clearly, you can see Map 3D interface. You can share source data, pushing data back and forth from Map 3D to Map Server in a one-step. And then accessing that data via iPhone, iPad, Google, also multi-touch navigation screens that allow you that access. And then publishing and interoperability, sharing with Civil 3D, Map 3D, AutoCAD utility design, and also AutoCAD. Clearly, those are built on top of AutoCAD. And then sharing geospatial data in reference to a 3D environment. You also can push this data to InfoWorks for those who are familiar with InfoWorks. And then exchanging data, saving maps, that's new in 2014. Store drawings, project files, easy to access in Autodesk 360, which is new in 2014, clearly in 2015. And then online, we talked about Autodesk 360 being able to access data with Autodesk 360. If you go to your online, open for mobile syncing, sharing data in reference to your ribbon. And then being able to share data in a 3D environment. Everything that you work with within Map 3D Map Server in terms of its data can be pushed into InfoWorks. So whether it's ArcEsri, MicroStation, Bentley files, a model, Revit, AutoCAD, Civil 3D, Map 3D, Google Warehouse, all that data can be pulled in to InfoWorks. And clearly CAD, GIS, and spatial analysis in terms of building a 3D model into InfoWorks also. So the ability for data exchange, and then interoperability, and then publishing with contractors. Clearly, I picked on an object. It had a general 3D visualization geometry and features tab, where now enhanced hatch patterns that you can push to AutoCAD, and then also 2D object industry models. Okay, so there's some key capabilities available to 2013, 14, and 15. I'm going to go quickly through these industry models. Clearly, Microsoft SQL and Oracle databases, Web Workflow Foundation, and then AUD, Autodesk Utility Design, and then linear referencing models for rail or transportation, and then spatial data for industry models. So standard drawings, standalone industry models, those come straight out of the box. They have all the layers and models and data in a template that's set up for you already. So access managed industry models, Oracle databases, SQL Server. And then versioning, Oracle, Microsoft, and then SQLite. For those who want more information on that, just let me know and I can get that information to you. And then the industry models typically work with gas, water, and wastewater, and then electric. So GIS data, AutoCAD data, FDO data, pulled in, linear referencing, you have the ability to create dynamic data from just a 2D drawing. And then extracting that data, pushing that data out to utility design, and then specifically for as-built information. And then under the industry models also, creating models from GIS. I can bring in GIS data and also create a database from it. And again, anytime I talk about industry models, those are specific templates that you need to use that open up in Map 3D. So connecting to a GIS database, map source, querying that data, and then now doing design. So bringing an existing environment and doing design from it. Source connection, mapping, merging the GIS database after you've created the design back to Esri or GIS. And then data mapping. So this is some of the things you could do in the previous versions with the data store and bulk copying. Now you have new configuration mapping that you have with industry models. So a configurable interface supports two-way integration, and then also easy to use for utility of any size. So utility designs merging straight to GIS and database sources. And then also commercial base map, geolocation, we talked about that, map server a little bit, easy to access, Autodesk 360, enhanced extract, update, merge capabilities for AUD now. And then clearly I've given you some top reasons for working with Map 3D. If you get a little bit more involved, map infrastructure. So clearly there's 3 out of the suite, standard, premium, and ultimate editions. Clearly if you get the ultimate edition, you get everything. AUD, Map 3D, Civil 3D, raster design, AutoCAD also. So again, with Map Server, I'm just going to quickly go through these, which underline is also coordinate system aware, and then easy access to Autodesk 360, easy to use GeoMap. Command provides access to Autodesk Map Services, which is part of Autodesk 360. Again, accessing data online. And then really being able to incorporate data, whether it's street level or aerial information, to geocodes or reverse geocodes based upon that project location. So clearly, throwing a map and not having a coordinate system is an issue. So you do have the ability to give it coordinate systems, editing and modifying, and also creating coordinate systems. And then with geolocation in Google Street Maps, also creating a quick plot of those locations and areas. Publishing the PDF, clearly we know we can do that. And do new online for Autodesk 360. You can clearly see online options open for mobile, multiple GIS merging in databases, choosing to share documents and collaborating that information. So you get direct access, Autodesk 360, upload the data, share your maps, drawings with multiple stakeholders or multiple users. And then establishing a GIS connection. Clearly we've seen we can go on an FDO or within a industry model connecting to that database source and then extending the design of that model. And then connect back to that model and merge that data. Being able to create, manage intelligent industry models. I talked about GIS and CAD data and FDO sources from just drawings. And then utility design and then GIS. We also have a YouTube channel in reference to putting out data and creating data. So different examples of some of the tools you guys may be out there using. So what I am going to do is we'll open that up and we'll jump back to Map 3D because again I talked about being able to on specific tools. You can see on the specific tools workflow layer translator, then under map setup clearly assigning a coordinate system. So this will come up in a second. Clearly assigning a coordinate system. And then under my output tab, I'm converting blocks, pushing data to a current map, plain AutoCAD file, a drawing to an SDF file, spatial data format, and then as an image. And then on the Autodesk 360 tab, you can clearly see where we can share documents. So it designates who can access this current document to your Autodesk 360 account. You can add in that for share. Opening up on a local sync folder, that means downloading from the actual Autodesk 360 account. And then syncing my data. We talked about A360 Web. We also have the design feed. And then we also have, remember I talked about the Ultimate Suite, which gives you raster design also. So clearly with raster design, rubber sheeting and touch up, clean up, you can do all those things, crop, drawings, aerials, images, inserting an image, also same functionality with map on the insert tab. So if I picked on that, it's just going to start my raster design and allow me functionality for that menu. Just going to agree to that real quick. And then it gives me that option, just like we did with Map 3D on the Insert tab. So a lot of the functionality just moves around in different places, but you do have that flexibility. So I'm just going to close that up. And then we also have plugins and also feature apps. So something to be aware of. And then also up here at the top, just move this over. Move that back. I like to show my menu bar up there. And then down here at the bottom, for workspaces, we talked about the planning and analysis. So for my workspace, and let me just minimize this so you can see this on my other screen here. This may be a little bit bigger than we want, but we'll work with it. So my workspace here, down here at the bottom, clearly you can see planning and analysis, my maintenance workspace, and then my Map Classic. So for those of you who haven't run into this yet, Map Classic is the old Map Classic with no ribbons and minimal toolbars that you want to utilize. If you come from the old school map, and then we also have the maintenance workspace. So the maintenance workspace allows me to utilize my industry models. So again, you have to have specific templates to use the industry models for that. But clearly you can see it's a whole different brand in reference to the design data that you want to work with in terms of our maintenance industry model. So we'll just jump right back to planning and analysis. So again, one of the things I wanted to be able to do is kind of show you some of the features with Map 3D, because there's a lot. And because I had so many requests for certain different things, I wanted to make sure everyone gets a feel for some of the things you can do with Map 3D in reference to 2015. So what I want to do now is, if there's any questions, I want to try to address some questions if anyone has questions. Or again, you can send in to Linda Netzker or Todd in reference to what you would like to see.
I'm here, Ken. It doesn't look like there are any questions. So we do have one special that we wanted to share with you. Ken, may I switch presenters to me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Can you see my screen, upcoming live lab learning class?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. This is a Map 3D for AutoCAD users class that we're having. It's for 4 half days from 9 to 12:30, and because you've attended this seminar, we will have 4 buy one, get one free for today's participants. If you have an account advisor with Applied Software, get in touch with them. Otherwise, just email info@ascii.com, and we will get you that information. One last thing. If you have any questions, I think you know where to reach us. And search for Live Lab Learning on YouTube to see this webinar and other webinars. And we thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate it. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.